I really think Cardano is primed for a bullish breakout. And in 10 minutes, I want to show you exactly what I'm looking at and why I think that this could occur, why I'm still bullish on Cardano, why my investment thesis has not been shaken on it, and then what I would be looking at in order for me to invalidate it. At what point would I decide, I need to sell my ADA, I need to kind of take a break for a little bit? What is that scenario? Okay. But right now, I remain bullish on Cardano. These are the reasons why. In the description of this video is the Crypto 100x Blueprint, where I talk a little bit more about crypto, what I'm doing, what I like to talk about financial stuff that doesn't really make it to the YouTube channel. So if that interests you and you also want my 7 steps to 100x this cycle, get it down there below. Okay. This is Cardano. Let's zoom into the chart a little bit here. So what am I watching? The first thing that I'm watching for Cardano is what stage of the market cycle is it in? The way that I want to do this is with stage analysis. You have stage 1 through 4. Stage 1 is your base. We can look at it over the last cycle. Stage 1 is going to be your base. Where does ADA find a bottom against the dollar? Stage 2 is the growth. Stage 2 is formalized by getting above the 30 and 40 week moving averages on a weekly chart. Okay, this is stage 2. Stage 3 is the topping section where price starts to move into the moving averages after a stage 2, right? Starts to flirt with the moving averages, come below the moving averages, and then you have the 30 week cross below the 40 week. That is a stage 3 distribution at the top of a cycle. Stage 4 is the decline, where the price is durably below the 30 week moving average and is just moving lower. You can see here in 2023, 2024, we have moved into stage 1 again for this cycle, moving horizontally with the moving averages. And then, we had like a false breakout from stage 1 to stage 2. This is very common, having a failed stage 2 breakout. This is technically a stage 2 breakout that failed back into stage 1. And then in that November, December pump in late 2024, when ADA, XRP, and a bunch of other tokens pumped, we durably entered the very, very, very early beginnings of stage 2 again. A lot of professional traders would not trade this just yet. They would wait for this period, this kind of retest of the previous high, to kind of have a breakout moment. What would happen in order to validate that is volume would shrink. Volume would become very, very low, and then you would get a massive volume spike, probably from an institution or something like that. That would push the price of ADA much higher. Then traders, long-term traders and professional traders would ideally enter on that position as it breaks out of this high zone. So somewhere right here, around $1.30, something like that. But that's besides the point. We're not traders. We're long-term investors. What is Cardano doing to remain bullish? Well, the first thing I think that it's doing really well is on the weekly chart, it's maintaining above its 30-week and 40-week moving average. If this is going to turn into a stage 2, this is the very, very, very beginning of it. This is where people are getting ready to make the most amount of money. And yes, going from 30 cents to $1.30, and even today at 72 cents is still good money. But the real money will start if this turns into a real stage 2, like it did right here, right? So you see this kind of distribution phase after the first breakout of stage 1, Cardano kind of coming back and testing this high support line, and then breaking out into a really big durable stage 2 over a couple months. That is what I think is going on here. And we can confirm that by what Cardano is doing around the moving averages. The fact that Cardano is maintaining above the 40-week and is trying its best and looks like it's pushing back above the 30-week and hasn't really fallen below the 30-week on a weekly close is very, very good. So this, to me, remains bullish. I think Cardano continues upwards. I think it's going to come back up and touch this trend line, and then we're going to figure out what it is going to do at this trend line, okay? If we are matching this trend line with a similar looking trend line back here in the 2020 era, you can see we had only a couple touch points, right? This lasted about, for comparison, this lasted about, maybe you could say like 14 weeks, and it had maybe 1, 2, 3 touch points before it broke out on the 4th. And so we can kind of compare that. I haven't actually looked at this. We can compare about that, what it is doing today. I've looked at the touch points. You can see we have about 1, 2, 3. And if Cardano touched it again, that would be the 4th touch point, right? That could be pretty bullish. But then I want to see how many weeks we've actually been in this pattern. We've been here about 16 weeks, so 2 weeks longer than the last time. Maybe we need a couple more weeks in order to kind of digest that, because the market is in, a much more difficult time frame than 2020, 2021 was, right? But the first thing is that I want to see Cardano above the 30-week moving average. It's doing that. It's been doing that. If it keeps doing that, that is bullish, right? Long term, that is bullish for a stage 2. The second thing that I'm looking at is we have this downwards trend line that's mirroring the 2020 era, and we could get our fourth touch point. What does Cardano do around that point? If it breaks above the touch point and closes a weekly candle and continues higher, that could be our accelerated start of stage 2. The next big thing that I'm looking at on the ADA chart, we're just going to look at the ADA chart, is that when we're talking about this stage 2, when we're talking about this descending kind of like bull pennant that is forming here, when we're talking kind of about like the moving averages and the touch points, it also tends to line up with 2 Fibonacci. So we're just getting some added ideas, some added support, right? And it looks like where Cardano is today, if you just take the cycle low that we had down here in 2023, it looks like Cardano has just bounced off the 618 Fibonacci, right? And this 618 Fibonacci is actually providing a lot of support right in here with this previous higher high, and right in here with the moving averages. So we see a lot of evidence, similar to how when Cardano was dropping down here, it had a lot of evidence of support below it. We're seeing a lot of evidence of support below the current price, meaning that we're seeing a good spot where Cardano can build a base before heading back up again. This is just one Fibonacci. There's actually also a second bigger one that mirrors this as well. If you can take this low right here, and you can do it, and it maps out, and you can see where the 786 on the total chart lines up. It lines up right here below Cardano's current price. Some people say, hey, well, you should actually take it from the COVID low. Don't worry, we can. And the same thing occurs. Look at where this 786 Fibonacci is sitting right here on the total Cardano chart, and it is just providing this beautiful support that Cardano is really resting on. And so I think that this was a great move, a great first move for Cardano to get back into the Fibonacci. It's retracing, building a 786, and now what I think we can see, if Cardano maintains above the 30-week moving average, which it looks like it is doing, maybe it can continue and start to plow its way through these Fibonacci levels and make its way back to an all-time high. Finally, the last thing I think that you should look at, I know we have to finish this up here because I said 10 minutes, right? But the final thing that you should look at, and you can look at Cardano across multiple exchanges when you do this. You can go type ADA USD, and you can see we have Coinbase, Binance, Kraken. It's going to be different on every single one. But what typically happens before a major move up is volume is going to shrink to minimal amounts. And we can see this in the previous cycle. You can come down here, and this is weekly volume, and you can see, look at the volume right here, compared to when ADA started moving. So volume shrink to its lowest point in this whole 2020, 2018, 2019 season. It shrank the lowest before this major run up. Look, let me show you here. Look at how low volume is right here before the run up. Look at how low volume is here before the run up, right? And then we can come back here and look at what we are today. You can see how volume is significantly dropping throughout the beginning of stage 1, which is good. That's a normal sign. And then volume really comes down here to the lowest levels it's ever been before a major run up. And then we repeat the same cycle. Look at how low volume is down here compared to here, right? Volume is shrinking until the major run up. And so when we have that contraction in volume, that means less ADAs out there on the market, and less people are capable of selling their ADA because they've already sold all the ADA that they're going to sell, right? That is a good thing. When we see green candles that are this big compared to weekly volume that is only this big, that means that this is somebody major coming into the market. This is something like an institution buying ADA. And then after that, we see smaller red volume candles. That means people, probably retail, are selling their ADA at this price point, whereas the institution is not full clipping their ADA. And so what we want to see is a very small number of ADA volume that leads us into the next week, which is a massive volume, which gets us above these resistance lines. Okay, and so I would look for a very, very small volume, indicating that less ADA is on the market, less people are capable of selling. Then an institution can come in and put in a massive buy price and push ADA really back up to a new higher high for this cycle. But I think that this is a very good sign. You can see how This was, it's from 2022 to 2023. Look at the size of volume. It's somewhere around 220, 300 million ADA, 100 ADA, 100 million ADA being transacted weekly on Binance. Here on this 1 week, they did 338 million, much higher than all the rest. Now, today, we're back down to these levels of 28 million, 30 million. This was 100 million. And so this is retail. This is institution. This is retail. Big buys are institution. Okay. So this is what I'm watching. I think that Cardano is still primed for a very bullish move. All it has to do is stay above this 30-week moving average and continue. And the negative scenario is if Cardano breaks below the 30-week, breaks below the 40-week, and then starts to move down into a stage 4. If that were to happen, if Cardano were to break below the 40-week and break below the 30-week durably, then it would indicate that this is a stage 3 distribution pattern, and that we could possibly see like a stage 4. What the similar scenario is, if you don't consider this one giant stage 1, you can consider this is stage 1, this is stage 2, this is stage 3, and this is stage 4, with this being a new stage 1, like on a much more micro basis compared to the macro picture. And so what we could see here is if ADA broke below the moving averages, came down and then retested the moving averages and kept falling, then this would be your stage 1, this is your stage 2, this is your stage 3, and then that area would be your stage 4. That would be pretty bearish for price. I think that if ADA dropped below these moving averages and durably fell and then continued lower, then you would want to definitely consider pausing buys of ADA, maybe swap your ADA for something else that's a little bit more bullish. There are other charts that would be bullish at that point that can probably make you more money in the short term while ADA figures out a new base. If ADA also broke below kind of those Fibonacci levels here around like the 60 cent ADA level, 60 to 70 cent ADA level, that would be a big discussion, because then ADA would be breaking below moving averages, breaking below key Fibonacci's, and would definitely start to head in a bearish direction, which I don't think any of us really want. Okay, so the bullish scenario stays above moving averages, starts to break upwards, gets a high volume day to push it up, indicating institutions are buying. The bearish scenario breaks below moving averages, 30-week, crosses below the 40-week, and then ADA enters into stage 4 decline, breaks below the Fibonacci levels, starts to go down and find a new base. During that period, I would probably hold off on buying ADA. And maybe, if you find a better asset to be in, you could trade to it for that time period while ADA figures out what it's doing. That's what I'm watching on ADA. I don't think it's too complicated. I think we should keep the trend analysis and the idea of where crypto is as simple as possible. Some catalyst is probably going to come in a couple weeks, maybe April or May, to push ADA higher or lower. Right now, we're in a little pausing phase. The whole crypto market kind of is. Bitcoin is as well. And we're going to have a catalyst probably in, a month or two, maybe in the summer, that is going to decide the fate of the crypto market. That's what I'm watching. That's what I think is going on. I'm still bullish ADA, and I think ADA has a massive potential to have a massive rally to a new higher high for this cycle, somewhere around like $1.50 or $2 or something like that. I think that would be very good for crypto. It's all going to depend on what news comes out and what the narrative is.